That was the Jackson 5 with Get It Together, a song more or less appropriate to our next item, which is our roundtable discussion here on the Monocle Daily with me, Andrew Muller, and Chloe Potter. This week, it's our regular Thursday roundtable discussion. I should suggest it's what we do on Thursday evenings. And this week we're talking about crowdfunding.
Now, facilitated by the internet and predicted by some to be the future of financing, it allows individuals to invest directly in a creative idea, a business concept, or to simply help an individual in need of some cash. And joining us in the studio to discuss the potential and the pitfalls of crowdfunding is Michael Norton, who's chairman and co-founder of Buzzbnk, and Simon Dixon, CEO and founder of Bank to the Future. Gents, thanks so much for joining us this evening. Can I start with you, Simon? You wouldn't think that crowdfunding would work. You'd think that people would be nervous about handing over money. Why do people give?
Well, people give for a number of different reasons. So you've got people that give for non-monetary rewards. They just want to be a part of something. They want to see something become a reality. They do it for selfish reasons because the rewards on offer are something that they genuinely want. Or they actually do it because they want to invest, just like a public company that was created by an investment bank. They invest because for future returns as well.
But do you think it's partly, Michael, do you think it's partly about that buzz of being involved, one of the first to be involved in a new idea?
Well, one thing is that you can get really zany ventures up. And one of ours was something called Cola Life, which wanted to distribute drugs in Africa using the space between the necks of Coca-Cola bottles. And they've designed a pouch. And they got their first funding from, I think, a cycle ride to Prague, or a sponsored cycle ride, and on Buzzbnk. And they've gone on to raise £1 million from DFID to do a pilot project in Malawi.
And is the sense that the same project wouldn't have had a hope in hell of getting funding from a traditional bank or a more traditional structure?
Well, this was a charitable project, so they'd have gone to a grant-making trust or something like that. But if you start raising money yourself, it gives you much more power to raise money from other people. If you get a group of people around you as your friends, your crowd, then it's a much more powerful organisation. I always say in crowdfunding, the crowd is even more important than the funding. Having people who share your vision, share your dreams, share their contacts, ask their friends, and that sort of thing. And that's why crowdfunding is different from just regular fundraising.
I mean, do you think it could actually end up helping to make business, I guess, more accountable, even slightly cuddlier, I suppose? Because I'm thinking, this is still being talked about like it's this incredibly revolutionary new idea, but of course it's almost 4 years since we had a US presidential campaign largely crowdsourced, which was Barack Obama's, which made huge play of getting millions of small donations. Do you think it actually does make business more accountable and more open to more people?
Well, it should do. I mean, the tragedy of Barack Obama was he didn't follow up on the potential of it once he was elected. His crowd just dissipated. The crowd is there for you. They are your co-venturers. They help you get going. They give you a leg up. And if you make them feel a part of your success, they'll want to continue the journey with you.
And Simon, the whole ethos of both of your companies actually seems to be, it couldn't be further from that sort of faceless, cold, money-grabbing, cliched image that everyone has of the traditional bank. Your companies very much pride themselves on having an ethos of being warm and fuzzy and socially responsible, don't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, for the last 5 years, I've been campaigning for a reform of our banking system. And after a few years of that, I got fed up and decided, well, what's the future of banking actually going to look like, and how do we get that underway? And as I saw the crowdfunding movement move, we thought that we'd take the best practices from my time as an investment banker, best practices from retail banking, combine that with the breakthroughs that have been happening with crowdfunding, and make that something quite serious that can be a real disruptive play for banking in the future.
Yeah, and we have two other things really. One is reciprocity and engagement. So engagement, not just giving, but engaging in the issue. And reciprocity, it's not just a one-way transaction. The people you're supporting have a duty back to you to engage with you and to take you on the journey. But the second thing is that we're involved really in what's called social enterprise. And that's a slightly different way of doing business than plain philanthropy and charity. And social enterprises seek to create enterprising solutions. And if they're generating income, and if they need money, why can't they share their success with you? And I'll just give a little example. I wrote a book. I've published it. It's on how to use the internet to change the world. And I got about 50 people behind me as my crowdfunders to pay for the design of the book and to pay for big issue vendors to give free copies away to their favourite customers. And in return for that, I had some quite zany benefits. For £10, you got a copy of the book. Then you got various multiples of copies and signed books, etc., etc. £100, you come to a party. £500, you come on a tandem bike ride with me to look at social enterprise. and I got 3 people by that, and they gave more than they would have done. And it was a sort of challenge of doing something quite interesting.
And there's personal face-to-face interaction involved.
Well, that's the whole point,
yes.
that all the benefits seek to engage people in the venture. We had another one called Pants to Poverty. It wasn't on our website. We did it offline. But there was a loan note, and they paid their dividend in pants. 8.7% APR in pants.
But so Simon, we've talked about all the positives of this way of funding projects. But what are the potential pitfalls? What are the problems involved?
Well, one of the things, we spend a lot of time on the whole due diligence process. So we want to make sure that everyone that comes on the platform is someone that should be on the platform. That's an investable proposition. We want to do everything we can to protect from fraudsters. It is open to that type of thing, just as ordinary banks are open to that type of thing.
So presumably it is going to have to become more structured, managed, regulated than perhaps the kind of free-loving ethos would like it to.
That's one of the things that we're spending a lot of time, and we meet up with a lot of the people in this disruptive finance scene, and we're all here self-regulating at the moment, and we're actually asking the regulators to regulate us, and they're saying you don't need to be regulated. So it's a real turn of events right now.
I mean, presumably, as the idea spreads, the crowdfunding market will become more invaded by sort of entrepreneurs and people wanting funds and people wanting to attract attention to their projects. And you mentioned earlier that a couple of quite weird off-the-wall projects have picked up funding. Now, that idea for transporting drugs did sound brilliant. But is it not the case that it's the nature of the internet that it's going to be the weird, unusual, surprising ideas which are more likely to attract attention, that this is going to attract funding to the extremes rather than the mainstream?
No, not at all.
Really?
I mean, I used to teach fundraising, and what you teach with fundraising is to make your proposition sound really exciting to your potential supporters. So, I mean, Cola Life is just a method of distributing drugs, but if you present it in a certain way, it becomes really zany and exciting. And that's fundraising.
So it's all about knowing who you're pitching to before you start pitching.
And creating a sense of excitement.
But also, people are not just investing for that excitement. Some people are investing for genuine returns. People are getting better returns that they can get at a bank at the moment through crowdfunding and different products.
Do you know of people who are making a career out of investing via crowdfunding?
I know plenty of people that are professional bloggers. They're doing this full-time as investors,
And it's a pretty brutal forum in a way, isn't it, Simon? Well, both of you, actually. If your idea doesn't work, if it doesn't capture the imagination, it's not going to take off. You're not going to get the funding.
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with social enterprises, with projects which deliver some sort of social benefit. So people do have these mixed motives. One is they may want to do something for the environment. They may want to get some interesting benefits in return. They may want an actual financial return on the money they put in. And it's up to the venture to decide what benefits to offer its supporters and then to market it. The biggest problem actually is that the ventures, some of them believe that if they put their page up on the internet, the money will just flow in. And all the evidence is that you fundraise from your friends and your networks, and you encourage them to fundraise from their friends and their networks. And the people who put in the effort win. And there's a sort of rough rule that is throughout crowdfunding that half the projects work and half don't. And the half that don't are the ones that don't bother to do anything about it.
And I think it's also really important to know that that I'd rather, as an entrepreneur, know up front whether I've got a bad idea than 5 years down the line when I'm bankrupt.
So it's actually a good a way to test the water.
It's the ultimate way of testing your project on the market.
Yeah, and Simon, what are the areas that are particularly benefiting? Obviously, Michael, you've been talking about social enterprise, and I understand the arts are another area which is really benefiting from this kind of funding.
Yeah, creative projects, movies. We focus more on tech startups and traditional businesses that would have been funded by a venture capitalist or an ordinary business angel. But the artistic and creative side a ton of money has made its way. There's some new tax legislations which are going to make a lot more money come to the startup community now as well, and crowdfunding is a perfect project for that.
I mean, but if somebody's listening to this now and thinking, well, I've got an idea that I need funding for it, and I want to, this sounds like a really good way of raising the capital. What's sort of a really key piece of advice each of you would give that person?
For a start, is if you've got an idea, then crowdfunding is a really good way of testing the market. You've got to be able to pitch it. You've got to have someone in your team that can pitch it. You've got to be able to put together some creative rewards. However, if you're further down the line than just an idea, we would like to find businesses that a business angel or a venture capitalist would be more likely to get involved in. So a good team, a good financial model, anything that you would do in order to get traditional funding should be done as well. And because we're taking this as a very serious project.
And do you have companies that take a bit of traditional funding and a bit of crowdfunding, and do you envisage that's the way it's going to work, or do you think crowdfunding is going to continue to grow exponentially and take over?
Yes, so many people are combining their online efforts with their offline efforts. They're meeting business angels on the side. The business angels are contributing to the crowd. We're doing a lot of match funding where angels can contribute once the crowd has raised a certain amount. And I think there's going to be many more variations in the future.
And it's pretty much the same with us, that people raise grants, they raise social finance, they do crowdfunding.
It's another thing to have in their armoury.
Yeah, but the one thing actually benefits the other. So if you've got a crowd of people behind you, you're much more fundable by a local government or government department than if you're just on your own.
And Michael, I wanted to pick up something you said earlier when I mentioned the crowdfunding aspect of Barack Obama's presidential campaign, and you sort of offered the view that he'd let all that slip and he'd let his kind of flock drift, as it were. Do you think that's an opportunity for crowdfunding as well, that you actually build the audience by getting them to buy into your idea, and then you can, if you carry on cultivating that market, they'll stay loyal?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a journey. It's a journey with a person and an idea to help them make it happen. And they have to persuade you that it's a great idea, that it has, with us, social impact, with Simon it'll be commercial impact. And then they have to put in the effort to bring you along that journey. So you don't just give support once, but what we say is you give more, you do more, and you find more. So you become an active part of helping the social venture become successful.
Because Michael, in your case, in many of your projects, it's not just about investing money or donating money, is it? It's about exchanging skills, and people can get actually personally involved.
Yes. And we're the only crowdfunding website in the social arena that does loans, and loans with shared revenue as well as donations and grants. So we're looking towards the new social enterprise culture. What was quite interesting is in the budget, the Chancellor announced that crowdfunding was going to be one of the things they wanted to promote in the development of social enterprise.
Simon, what do you think the future holds? You believe that the banking can be genuinely reformed by educating the next generation. Where do you see crowdfunding going?
I think crowdfunding is going to give a lot of opportunity to people right now that don't necessarily have the opportunity right now. So people have dreams of setting up things. They have dreams of doing social enterprises. Crowdfunding gives us the perfect opportunity to do that. In terms of banks are completely out of the startup funding. They never really were meant to be in startup funding. So the banks, I think, are going to be quite supportive of having something alternative that can take away a lot of the pressure from them, because they don't want to lend here.
Michael, you mentioned there earlier, it is true that the British government, certainly, that's Chancellor George Osborne, has made sort of encouraging noises about the idea of crowdfunding. But how important is it, given that this is such an idea which is supposed to be a kind of organic, collaborative, semi-spontaneous thing, how important is it really that government keep out of it?
Well, I hope they do, actually, because I think we can work it ourselves. I don't think we need any legislation behind it. I don't think we need any government support. But government encouragement that this is one way of bringing more money to create social change when philanthropic funds are running out.
Sure.
It's a really good idea.
It certainly is. Thank you very much, Michael Norton and Simon Dixon, for joining us to talk about crowdfunding. There's much more coming up on the Monocle Daily, including the Arts Renaissance in Dubai and why an Irishman is getting a state funeral in Australia, and weather frogs. Yes, weather frogs.
I'm really excited about the weather frogs.
All here on the
weather
Monocle
frogs
Daily.
is worth waiting for.
It is indeed. Do stay with us.
Bonjour, vous êtes sur Monocle 24.
This is Monocle 24.
Hi, this is Monocle 24.
Monocle 24です。
London, New York, Hong Kong, Tokyo.
This is Monocle 24.
In 1963, Rolex launched a new line called Cosmograph. The revolutionary design of the Cosmograph allowed the measurement of speed through a stopwatch function recording elapsed time. And in 1965, the name Daytona was added to the dial as a